What's up guys, my name is Blake Moore. Welcome to More Finance. In this video I'm going to be giving you the tips and the strategies that I used over the past weekend to make $1,000 during that weekend in just 28 and a half hours. That's all it took me to make $1,000 using Doordash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. And I'm going to give you guys all the tools you'll need in order to make this amount of money. Now I can't guarantee that in every single market it is possible, but I could almost guarantee that in a surrounding market that's close to you, you probably have the opportunity to make this kind of money in that market. So if you guys wouldn't mind just hitting that like button for me and also hit that subscribe button for me if you enjoy my content. But first, I did just want to mention my other channel, my brand new channel that I just started this week. It's called Doordash Driver Reacts. I'm uploading there as much as I can. The videos will be uploaded in the morning time around 10:30 to 11:30, and I still don't know if I'm going to be uploading there every single day or 3 times a week. I'm still kind of deciding on that. But if you want to head over there and check out that channel, it's just more content from me. It's all about my reaction to different Doordash topics, different Doordash videos that I find on YouTube, and all sorts of good stuff like that. So if you want to see more content from me and more of my thoughts on things, then go check out that channel and subscribe as well if you enjoy the content over there. Anyways, let's get right into these tips and strategies. So tip number 1, which is the most obvious tip of all, is use multiple apps. Use whatever apps you can. I used Doordash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. If you, in your market, Instacart is good, then definitely throw that one in there. If you want to try other stuff, definitely do that as well. Like, I don't know what the best apps are in every market. The 3 that I used are the 3 that work best in my market. So those are the 3 I used, but definitely do not try to do this with just one app. It's going to be next to impossible, and you're probably going to have to work over 40 hours to get there. Like, I know if I had just done DoorDash, it would have definitely taken me about 36 to 48 hours. Who knows how long it would have taken me, but usually with DoorDash, I can average about $22 to $24 an hour just using DoorDash. But by using the 3 apps, I was able to average over $35 per hour during the 28 hours I worked. So make sure you keep that in mind. Use as many apps as possible. This will give you the widest variety of orders you can choose from, which will help you be more selective and choose the higher paying orders so that you can actually hit that $1,000 every single weekend. Now, tip number 2 is a question I get asked a lot in the comment section. And tip number 2 would be to make sure you're running all 3 apps at the same time the entire time of your shift. A lot of people say that they pause the other apps they aren't using while they're doing a certain order. That's not the best strategy, in my opinion, because it limits the amount of orders you're getting. So if I accept a DoorDash order and I'm driving to it, and then I get an Uber Eats order at the same time that I'm driving to that DoorDash order, and that Uber Eats one is a lot better, I would have just missed out on that Uber Eats order because I would have gone offline on Uber Eats and I wouldn't have received it. So this way you can constantly be getting as many orders as possible, and you can constantly be as selective as possible when it comes to choosing your orders. So make sure you have them on at all times, all the apps you're using. Don't ever turn one off, because you never know what order could just be lurking around the corner, and as you're driving to an order that you think is really good, a way better one could just pop into either Grubhub, Uber Eats, or DoorDash, whichever one you're not using, and then you can either decline the order you were just working on and accept that one, or add it onto your route and do it as well as the other order. Now, tip number 3 is something that is going to take some time for you to do. And maybe I should have put this as the first tip, because it's really the first thing that you have to do once you get all the apps you're using. And that would be to know your area. And maybe this isn't even your area. Maybe it's a richer area, maybe it's a better area that pays you more, but get to know the area that's best around you so that you can actually make this $1,000 in a weekend. And especially if you're trying to do it in 28 hours like I did, then you're definitely going to need to know your market extremely well. Now let me give you guys a little background of my market. So I grew up in a town about 20 miles south of Salt Lake City. Now, the area that I dash in is about 3 or 4 miles away from that town. So the town I grew up in, I lived there for 10 years. And then the area that I live in now, I've lived in for almost a year now. So I know this area extremely well, like the back of my hand. And not only have I lived in this general area for about 11 years now, I also have been dashing for over 3 years within this market as well. So I would highly suggest that if you have been dashing in your same area or whatever, if you know the area pretty well, like you think you do, then start adding on those additional apps And this is kind of the sub tip of this tip number 3, is to make sure you have multi-apped for 3 or more months before you try and do this. Now, you might be able to do this like your first weekend multi-apping. Who knows? I don't know how good your market is. But I know for me, when I first started multi-apping, it would have been hard to make $35 an hour for 28 straight hours at the beginning of my multi-apping, because you just don't know the strategies and you don't know how to plan out your routes. You don't know which orders go well together. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes into multi-apping that you don't know right off the bat. So I've been doing it for, I believe, about 5 months at this point, but dashing for over 3 years in this same area. So make sure you know your market. That's like one of the biggest things, especially when it comes to Grubhub, because you're gonna have to figure out the mileage on your own and take guesses when it comes to the orders. But you also need to know your market extremely well when you're using 3 apps, because you have to plan out your own route. You can't just go where it's telling you to go. You have to literally plan it out in your head, and it actually takes quite a bit of cognitive thinking, and it can put a toll on like your energy, because it's actually pretty mentally taxing to do this. So what you're gonna need to do is, once you know your area very well and you're an expert in that area, once you start accepting multiple orders from multiple platforms, then that's when you're gonna need to plan out your route. And the reason you're gonna need to know your area for that is because it can be taking you some different places, but if you know certain ways to get to certain places that are quicker, that maybe you avoid traffic, maybe all sorts of things that knowing your market brings into your repertoire, then that can really be beneficial when it comes to having like 2 orders from Doordash, an order from Uber Eats, and an order from Grubhub all at the same time. And you're like, well, what am I even doing? Because I'm so confused, I have no idea where to go. But if you know your market, you're gonna be like, as you're accepting orders, this is what I do. As I'm accepting orders, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pick this one up first, I'm gonna pick up that one, then I'm gonna drop off this one, then I'm gonna go pick up that one, then I'm gonna drop off this one, then I'm gonna drop off this one, then I'm gonna drop off this one. And so you literally have to do that. It sounds super confusing, but I promise you, the more you multi-app, the better you're gonna get at this. Now, tip number 4 is extremely important, like probably one of the most important tips I have for you guys, and that is to focus on pickup times. That is how you're going to plan out your entire route, the entire shift that you're going. So on Doordash and Grubhub, it's really nice because it shows you the exact pickup time. Uber Eats is a little more difficult. You kind of just have to go on feel for this one. Back to knowing your market. Know which restaurants are going to take longer to make orders, because you don't want people to just be waiting for their food for hours on end, and you don't want to get there and the food's been made for 20 minutes. That's not what you want to do. You're not trying to screw over the customer when it comes to multi-apping. So what you're going to want to know is that on Doordash, you can arrive 10 minutes after the recommended pickup time without having any violation. Once you go, I don't know if it's at 10 minutes or over 10 minutes, but one of those, once you hit that time threshold, then you're gonna get a contract violation. And unfortunately, sometimes this has happened to me. It's happened to me twice ever since I've been multi-apping, but it's okay because I believe you get 3 contract violations per 100 deliveries you do on Doordash. So it's not the biggest deal in the world if you show up like 11 or 12 minutes late, because the pickup time is like 3 minutes after you receive the order, and it's a restaurant that you know is going to take a while to make the food. It's okay to use one of these contract violations every 100 deliveries. Now, I'm not endorsing getting contract violations. I'm just saying sometimes it happens, and if you're making $35 an hour at the expense of 1 contract violation, then I say it's worth it. So just remember pickup times. Grubhub is really nice because it's usually like 20 or 30 minutes after I receive the order is when the pickup time is. So if I have a Doordash and an Uber Eats order, I'm like, oh sweet, I'm gonna go pick those 2 up. Grubhub's gonna be my last one because their pickup time is always so late. And with Grubhub, I have yet to be penalized by arriving like 10 to 15 minutes late. And so something I've noticed with Grubhub is their pickup time is usually earlier than when the food's actually ready. Grubhub takes forever, and when I've just done Grubhub, the wait times are outrageous. So just remember that if you're using Grubhub along with the other 2 apps, that Grubhub takes the longest from the time that you receive the order. So usually I plan out that one to be my last pickup and my last delivery. Now with Uber Eats, you're kind of just gonna have to guess like I said, but I also haven't been penalized for picking an order up like 20 minutes after I've gotten it. So I don't know if I'm just lucky, I don't know, but just try to get there as quickly as possible. You don't want the food to be sitting there. So like I said, if you know the restaurant is going to take a long time, then you can leave that Uber Eats one for a later pickup time. But the whole goal is to make it so that you don't have to wait on any orders and that you're just going there, the order's already ready, you're picking it up, and you're not wasting any time. That's crucial to making the $1,000 every weekend, and if you're trying to do it in 28 hours like I did. You are not going to want to wait on really any order. Like, I don't know if you guys remember in one of the videos I put out during this whole challenge, I had the Indian restaurant say that it was going to be a 20-minute wait, so I went, picked up the Doordash order, picked up the Uber Eats order, dropped both of them off, then drove back to the Indian restaurant, and it had just barely gotten done. I had just received a notification on Grubhub that they had changed the order status to ready for pickup. So it was even more than 20 minutes like the guy had told me. It was actually about 25 or 30 minutes. So don't be afraid to ask if it's going to be a long wait too when you get to the restaurant, because these are just all things that you're trying to avoid when it comes to multi-apping. You're not going to want to wait on food because that's going to screw over the other orders that you're doing at the same time. And if you're not waiting on orders, then you're going to make a lot more money per hour. Now, sorry, this video is getting kind of long, but that's okay because these tips are really good and I think they really will help you make more money when it comes to trying to hit that $1,000 every single weekend. So tip number 5 I have for you guys is dash in a rich area. My favorite place to dash in is a town called Draper, and its average household income is $117,000 per year. So it's a very well-off area. It's a very wealthy area. There's a lot of good paying orders that come from this area. And this is the place I dash in all the time actually. It's right by my apartment where I live, and so it works out perfectly because it's just such a well-off area, and there's I'm not even kidding you, multi-million-dollar homes in this area. And so you can get some huge tips when it comes to dashing in a wealthy area. And because on weekends you're already getting bigger orders, it's usually family orders or high-end restaurant orders, these wealthy areas, they just throw tips at you like there's no tomorrow. So that's tip number 5 is if you live in a lower income area, then maybe try driving to one of the wealthier areas around you and see if you notice a big difference, because I know I have. Now, tip number 6 is to make sure you're taking orders that complement each other. You're not going to want to take orders just because it's a high paying order. Like say you get one from Doordash and it's $12, just a few miles, and you're like, great. And then you get a Grubhub order that's like $21, but it's 10 miles out of your way from the Doordash order. That's not an order that's going to be worth it. Like, make sure you're taking orders that complement each other. If you have that same $12 Doordash order and then you get that Grubhub order and you're like, oh, I'm so excited, decline the Grubhub order that's taking you clear out of the way, because I could guarantee you're either going to get a stack order from the Doordash or maybe an Uber Eats order pops up. It's only $6.50, but the pickup location is a restaurant right next to that Doordash order, and the drop-off location is only a mile away from the drop-off of the Doordash order. That's going to be a way better order to take than that $20 Grubhub order that's taking you 10 miles out of your area. So just remember that, take orders that complement each other. Tip number 7 is to be extremely picky during lunch and dinner, and maybe even the entire weekend. Weekends are the busiest time, especially in my market. I don't know in your market, but I assume in pretty much every market, weekends are the busiest. So be extremely selective. I promise you, I would sometimes decline orders for 10 minutes straight, and then you get 3 banger orders across all 3 platforms that go right next to each other, and they're all $10+ payouts. So I'm just telling you guys, it's worth it to wait. Don't be like, I haven't gotten an order I've liked in the past 5 or 10 minutes. I might as well just accept this order because I don't know when I'm going to get my next good one. No. There's probably good ones just around the corner, just a few more declines away. So just remember that, to be extremely selective, because weekends are busy, there's big orders out there, and especially during lunch and dinner. Tip number 8 is a pretty simple tip. Just make sure you're taking orders that keep you in your area. Doordash likes, for some reason, to take you out of your zone. So just make sure you're staying in your zone. You're not going to want to be driving back to your area. That's time wasted, and that's minutes that you really don't have to spare. You want to make sure every single minute you're doing orders, you're on your way to pick up food. That's the best way to make the most amount of money possible. So just keep the orders in your area, even if it's a really good order, like $20+, but it's taking you a couple miles out of your zone. Just don't worry about it. There's going to be another good order on the way, so just decline that one and make sure to keep the orders in your area. Now, tip number 9 that I didn't do as well as I wanted to, but it's make sure you get out and start dashing early in the day. I wish I could have gotten out at like 7 or 8 in the morning. It just makes things a lot easier. It makes the day go by a lot quicker when you're not going from like noon to midnight, it makes it a lot easier if you're going from like 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night or stuff like that, because then you get home, you still have some of your night left, and it doesn't feel like it's taking up your entire day. So my advice would be to get out as early as you possibly can. Now this might take a little bit of a toll on the amount of money you can earn per hour, but just from my experience, it makes it a lot easier to go longer hours. And tip number 10, the final tip that I have for you guys is make sure you're taking breaks. I don't know if you noticed, I took a break every single time, sometimes up to like 2.5 hours. Don't burn yourself out. Take a nice break, get some good food in you, get an energy drink in you, whatever you need to do to make sure you're focused, because you're not going to be wanting to drive drowsy, first of all. And when you're multi-apping and you're doing all the stuff that I just mentioned in the previous tips, it gets exhausting. I'm not kidding you guys. It gets really exhausting. Planning your own routes, declining a bunch of orders, trying to drive as quickly as possible without getting pulled over, like just doing all sorts of things to make it so that you can make the most money possible. It really does, like, it exhausts you mentally. And especially if you're going like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours, then you're going to want to make sure you take a break. My recommended break time is from 3 to 4 or 2:30 to 4:30 or 3 to 5, right in that area. That's always the slowest time in my area. Even on the weekends, it still dies down a little bit. So just take your break around 3 o'clock. And don't be afraid to take an hour or two, because you're gonna need the mental energy when it comes to that dinner rush where you're trying to pound out $40 to $50 hours every single hour. And it does take a mental toll on you. So just remember that. Don't exhaust yourself. Now, those are all the tips I have for you guys. And I know a lot of you people out there are gonna be saying like, hey, this isn't possible in my market. You're just in an extremely good market. You live in a highly dense populated city, all this kind of stuff. But I'm here to tell you guys that in the area I dash in consists of 2 towns, Draper and Riverton, and the total population adds up to about 91,000. And the square mileage of the area I dash in is actually 42 miles. It's an extremely spread out area because I live in a suburb about 20 miles south of Salt Lake City. And so this area is extremely spread out. Sometimes you have to go up canyon roads, like mountain roads, kind of. They take you a little bit out of the highly dense restaurant areas, and it's just super spread out, and the population is only 91,000 between the 2 towns that I dash in. So I just wanted to give you guys that information. So if your towns are comparable, then I do believe it's possible that anyone who dashes in an area that's like mine, and maybe yours is even better and you still didn't think it's possible. But just remember, if you use these tips and strategies, practice, and try going in a wealthy area. Like I said, the average household income in the area I dash in is $117,000. So do some research. Try and find the best market in your area. Don't drive 50 miles to get to a good market. But if you have to drive 5 or 10, 15 miles to get to an area where you can make over $30 an hour, then I say it's well worth it. So just remember those things, use these tips, and I'd love to hear if any of you guys try this out. Let me know down in the comments, because I'd love to hear if you use these tips and if they've actually helped you make more money. So I know they've helped me make more money, but I'm just curious to see if you implement these into your daily dashing and if they actually help you attain $1,000 every weekend, because I know it's pretty easy to hit that in my market. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thanks for watching this entire series that I've done, the past couple of videos. Make sure you stay tuned to my next video. I'm going to be showing you something really cool that you can do with the $1,000 that you make every single weekend using these tips. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you enjoyed these tips. Hit that like button for me if you enjoyed them as well. And as you guys know, you're the best subscribers in the entire world, and I'll see you guys next time.